Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Reisa Elden, and I'm here on behalf of Houzz. I'm the head of industry partnerships, and we are just very grateful for all of you joining us in our Resilient series. Today, we will be covering virtual design, diversified service offerings, and how to stay connected during this time. We just launched our Houzz Pro platform, which offers an all-in-one solution that empowers home design and renovation professionals to stand out, win more clients, increase profits, get paid faster, and stay connected with their clients and teams. So I'm very grateful for Kate O'Hara, who is the CEO and creative director for Martha O'Hara Interiors, to be joining us today. Kate, before I pass it over to you, I wanted to give a brief introduction, and I wanted to mention that we definitely will be taking all of your questions. I've already seen a lot of questions come in via email or private Facebook group and a lot of different platforms, so we really want to make sure that we are answering all of your questions during this time. Kate has even offered to stay a little bit longer than our designated hour, and let me give you a brief bio about Kate, and then I will let you take over. Okay, so as I mentioned, Kate is the CEO and creative director for Martha O'Hara Interiors, where she has pioneered the interior design firm's expansion to national markets and international clientele. So what I find is very ironic about how Kate has chosen to run her business is that you're kind of already doing virtual design, and you've kind of already figured out the equation of, instead of, changing your business model fully to e-design, how to make it work in this remote design world and this new kind of world that we're entering. Today, MOI is one of the most well-known interior design studios in the country, and I know that Kate has gone through the recession in 2008, so we are going to speak to that. And I do want to mention, just from a couple of our other previous webinars that we've been doing, if you haven't caught up on the previous webinars, we did cover legalities last week. We did cover a business coach and how to plan for right now and the long term. So definitely a couple housekeeping things. We will be recording this. We hope you can all hear us and see our screens. You can use the chat box below to ask questions, and we will try to answer as many of those questions as we can. And Kate, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Reisa. It's great to be here today and to get to talk to everybody. As Reisa mentioned, I am with Martha O'Hara Interiors, which is an interior design firm that was founded by my mom, a long time ago. And in the time since we were kind of originally a locally focused boutique custom design firm, we really stepped into digital marketing in a significant way. And through our partnerships with, Houzz in particular, we saw our business grow really rapidly and into markets that were outside of our locale. And as we did that, we had to figure out how to work with clients long distance and still provide a custom design service. And that figuring that out and working that process out has helped us a lot in, a time like we're in today, where we can't leave our homes, where we have to work virtually with all clients, whether they're local or long distance. And so that's a lot of what I'm here to talk to you about today. So today we're going to discuss virtual design. We'll talk about diversifying services. We'll talk about staying connected. And we'll also talk a little bit about the mindset that I think that each of us as business owners and business leaders needs to have in order to really find success even in difficult times. As Reisa mentioned, I am the CEO and creative director of Martha O'Hara Interiors. I started, though, very much in the marketing department and through marketing. So my role has really always been about finding the next client and considering the next service. And that's kind of the perspective I will be approaching things from. So I'd like to start today by just talking about the business mindset that I think needs to shift a bit when we are in a bit of more than a bit of a crisis. We often talk about our business plans, like what's your 1-year plan, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, and that needs to be really compressed when you're talking about a new business, and that's what I want to discuss in a minute. Then we'll talk about diversifying services. What are the types of services that we can be offering? Some of the virtual services and how to create virtual services for people who haven't done that before. And we'll also touch on ways to reach your next client. So the mindset of during a crisis really needs to be compressed in a few ways. And I think it's something that everyone needs to kind of keep top of mind right now. I mentioned that a compressed time frame is really important, and that's because we're not thinking in terms of a year and 5 years and 10 years. Right now we're thinking about this week, this month, this quarter. And if your business plan really is relying on an idea of I'm just going to hang back, do nothing, and circle back to business once things are back to normal, you might not be really setting yourself up for a lot of success, because we don't know when normal is going to happen again. We don't know how long we're going to be in a kind of new situation. And so figuring out what's going to work right now is really, really important. And the good news is a lot of the things that will work for us right now are things that can work for us in the long term as well. We also need to take some time to redefine what it means to be successful. So, successful 6 months ago might have been about, how rapidly you're growing, how much your revenue is increasing, how engaged you are on social media, how many leads are coming into you from Houzz. But now we need to redefine what success means and be thinking a little bit more about, how can we manage our overhead? Are there opportunities within our marketing budget to retarget people digitally? Are there past clients that we can be reaching out to and offering different services? But creating different indicators for yourself for success right now is going to be, I think, pretty important for you to stay positive, see that you actually are accomplishing things. And when Reisa mentioned that we've been through the 2008 recession, this is true. And what we found was that our business really plateaued during the recession, but as soon as we were out of it, it exploded. And it was because while all of our clients might have been doing smaller projects and less, we were picking up so many clients in order to plateau that we wound up having, picking up a lot of market share essentially, and having a lot more clients once they were ready to spend and invest in their homes again. And then finally, I'm a big proponent of making decisions with data in mind, and the type of data we're using to make business decisions is also changing right now. So again, we're not looking at historic data. We're looking at data from the last month, the last week, the last quarter to sort of show us what is happening next. We might not be looking at revenue specifically, because the revenue that we're seeing right now might be a reflection of projects that were happening 3, 4, 5 months ago. We might instead be considering things like, where are our leads coming from? Where's our next client coming from? And how many of them are coming, and what are they asking for? So now is a time to be pivoting, to be making changes, to be really responsive. But we don't want to be rash. We want to base decisions in data, not emotion. And we want to be able to feel like the changes we're making are reasonable given what an unprecedented time we're in. But today's talk is really about how you can diversify your services with your clients in mind and with this pandemic in mind. There's a lot right now that people are scared about. There's a lot right now that people are stressed and anxious and worried about, but there are some silver linings, right? And if you look for them, and one silver lining that is available to us right now is that we are at home. Business is not as usual, even if it is moving forward. And there's time right now to reflect on aspects of our businesses that weren't working for us, make some changes to them, and maybe to invest some time into the things that have always been hanging out there as like, man, I've always wanted to explore X, Y, or Z. And so as we do that, as we consider what our options are and how to diversify our services, we want to start by thinking about our clients and meeting them where they are right now. We've had clients reaching out to us saying, hey, we actually want to get started on that home project we were planning for a year or two out now because we can't go on all these vacations that we had planned. So some of our clients are saying, hey, I can't travel, might as well work on home. We have clients who are at home and who are not feeling financially nearly as stable as they were a few months ago. So they're not wanting to invest a ton of money into their homes, and yet they're at home. They're bored. They're getting sick of their interior, or they're realizing that the aspects of their home that weren't working for them a few months ago are totally not working for them now, and they're ready to make some changes just on a smaller scale. I think that if you really take the time to consider where your clients are now, you'll find that there are some opportunities to help them. And when you do that, you may discover that actually, once you rearrange your services, even if you're just doing it for the short term, that there are other people who might not have been your traditional, full service custom luxury design client who maybe are very much ready to hire you for a smaller scale service. And that can be a really nice pipeline to create for yourself that you can open and close even in the long term. And then finally, some people are finding this as an opportunity to expand their services beyond simply designing, by which I mean, maybe you've always wanted to be a speaker and do speaking on webinars. Well, there are a lot of webinars that are going on right now and a lot of opportunities to talk to clients or other designers or other people in the industry. Maybe you've always wanted to write a book. Maybe you've always wanted to start a blog. Maybe you've always wanted to reach people in a way that's a little bit different from how, as a custom designer or an interior designer, you traditionally have. So I want to take a minute for everybody to just have a sec to jot down some thoughts for themselves. Grab a piece of paper or open up your laptop and just make a couple notes to yourself. The first question I think you need to ask yourself is, what has changed in your clients' lives? That sounds really obvious. We're all stuck at home, but different people's lives are being affected differently. And when you start thinking about your specific client and how they work and where they work and if they work, where they live and how they traditionally live, are your clients stuck at home, or were they at home already? Are they not able to travel now? Do they have the need for a really well set up office that maybe hasn't been set up in the past? Do they have a vacation home that maybe they want to escape to for a little while and get away from all of this? These are all realities for some of our clients. And, or are they on the front lines and they need a space that is just going to be very, very chill and relaxing and revitalizing for them when they get home? So give some thought. What has changed for your clients? And then also think about what's changed in your clients' mindsets. For many people, many people are thinking about smaller scale projects. Many people are more willing to work virtually. Many people are bored out of their minds and they want to be entertained. And even that is an opportunity for each of us because we might be able to offer, in part, what we may be able to offer is that connection that people are really looking for right now when they're not getting many connections without the opportunity to leave their homes. And then finally, if you were to go out to drinks with your clients, what would they be complaining about? What would they be like, oh, this is driving me nuts right now? What are the things that are driving your clients a little batty? Because those are, again, opportunities, because so much of what is going on right now has put us back into our homes and has home so central to our pandemic experiences. So many of our complaints, challenges, and concerns are related to being at home as well. And these are all opportunities for you to consider a way to solve a problem. So let's talk, though, a little bit about virtual services. For the most part, we're not leaving our homes, and for the most part, our clients don't want us to. So how do we talk about services virtually? Well, virtual services can include, I would say very generally, one of three things. We have consultations, which can include color consults, and that can be a great foot in the door with somebody who maybe is going to have a larger project down the road, even if they don't have it right now. And if that's the case, then this is an opportunity to kind of start growing your pipeline even for down the road. There is e-design and virtual design packages. These tend to be flat rate services that are really well bound and where the deliverables are very clear. And I think this is where most people have questions about how do you even do this. And then finally, there's remote custom design, which is basically taking your services and finding a way to do them remotely. So when we talk about virtual consults, I think that personally, I think this is a really great place for people to start. Reisa, as we're going through these, if people have questions, go ahead and stop me as we talk about each of these. But virtual consults is where someone is hiring you essentially for 1 or 2 appointments. They have a really specific problem to solve. Maybe they need to choose a color palette for their interior. Maybe they want to re-floor plan a space with the furniture they have. Maybe they just want to give you a tour of their home and say, what should I do differently? And that's all that they want. The idea here is that you're figuring out what is a realistic cost for what may be 3, 4, 5 hours of your time, depending on what the service exactly is. And your client is actually going to do most of the legwork for you, because you're going to start by putting together a clear summary of what this service is. You're going to say, okay, for my virtual consults, I'm going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire. I'm going to provide you with the following deliverables, and we're going to meet 1 time or 2 times, and you're going to state exactly how long that's going to be. So this is very different from the custom services that most of us think about. This is really writing down step by step, here's the process, and here's what I'm going to offer. Now, what you're discussing during the appointment might change from one appointment to the next, but the amount of time you're spending within the appointments and afterward doesn't. And so you want to really clearly make sure that you've bound your offering. And here's how you do that. You do that by starting with a questionnaire. The questionnaire is designed to give you information, yes, but also to force your client to focus on what it is that you're going to do for them. So you're going to have some very clear questions. If I could work on one thing right now, what would that one thing be? If there was time to work on a second thing, what would that second thing be? You can also ask questions like, what are your favorite colors? What is your style? You might have ask people to share some photos with you of things that are inspiring them, or to use their house idea book to collaborate together. But the idea with the questionnaire isn't for them to give you all the information that you would be getting from a custom design client if you were building a house together. No, the idea is to sort of do the opposite. It's to get very, very focused. So you want every one of your questions to be focused on limiting how much your client is able to get into, and to get down to what's the one problem that we're trying to solve. Is your furniture flow really bad and not working for you now? Is your home office a problem and you want some help with it? Do you need your help just styling some bookshelves? Is that all that you need? That's what you're trying to get down to. I also mentioned the invoice here, and that's because when you do invoice someone, you want them to pay up front, not after service. And you want your invoice to note very clearly any expectations that you need someone to have. Are your services non-refundable? I would say so. You know, are there any clear deliverables that will happen after the invoice? You can state some things clearly, but you want your invoice in a friendly but firm way to make it clear what someone is going to get from you. And more importantly, you know, things like this is non-refundable. These are for consultation only services. Essentially, like, you don't have responsibility for things that they choose to do after talking with you.
Kate, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. This was actually really interesting, and somebody had messaged me this earlier. I love that pay up front, you know, non-refundable. But if you're just doing a virtual consult, do you need to send over an LOA? Do you need to send a full contract over?
I think that's up to you. I mean, an invoice is a contract, right? And so if you're just having a single exchange of service and goods for one single appointment, I would suggest that what you want is to have your invoice basically state, you know, 60-minute design consult, you know, non-refundable, you know, payment required upon scheduling the first appointment or whatever. So that would be my suggestion. And there are different ways you can do it. You can ask someone to pay before they even receive the questionnaire. You can ask someone to pay after you have received the questionnaire filled out. In that way, this person has committed and spent time on some things so that they're less likely to sort of back off or fall away. That's going to come down a little bit to the designer, their experience, and how they want to work with clients. What you want to, of course, avoid is a situation where you're having to offer a lot of, you know, credits back. That's really not the purpose of this. And even if someone ultimately doesn't use your service for the hour-long consult, if they're taking their time to benefit from the fact that you sent them a questionnaire that helps them to focus their ideas, and you know, if you spent any time in preparation for that meeting, you know, they are benefiting from you. And even if they're not, they're taking your time, and your time is valuable, and it's okay to apply a value to your time.
Yep. Okay, so this is like, I got 10 different questions on this, and when it was one of the first questions that came up, it would be great to hear the various ways design firms are billing for virtual consultations. What rate should we be charging? Should they be less than our typical rates? There's a bunch of questions about that. So let's hear your opinion.
Okay. So there isn't a single rate that you can offer, right? What you're going to charge people is going to be based somewhat on demand, somewhat upon your geographic area, right? I know, having worked with clients all over the US, that the standard fees people are expecting to pay vary vastly from one area to the next. And I don't think that there is a single amount that services should cost. I think that things should be priced for the market that they're in. Additionally, yeah, your experience is maybe your first couple clients you don't want to charge as much to. Maybe you increase your fee as you have more clients. What I don't think people should do is give their time away for free. I think that you are training people to not value your time when you do that. This is maybe a little contrary to what some people have to say, but you are a business. You are a business person. Your time is valuable. Your skills are valuable, and you deserve to be compensated for those, even if you choose as you get started with virtual services, or in light of the fact that we're in a pandemic, to offer them at a discounted rate. That's okay. But you do deserve to be compensated, and your clients need to remember that you deserve to be compensated, or you could be training someone to devalue you in the long run. And that typically I've found, and this is pretty anecdotal, but typically if I have a client who very early on is wheeling and dealing with me, I know that they're going to be a really challenging client in the long run, because they've told me that before I've even told them what my value is, they've told me they think I'm worth less. So there's, there is an element of that to keep in mind, is that not every dollar is worth the same amount, because not every client is going to be as pleasant to deal with, and some people are going to be a lot more time consuming. But that's where hopefully a virtual consult will spare you some of the difficulties of the more custom clients who do have that opportunity to wheel and deal, because you have everything set from the start and it doesn't change. You can change your price. You can say, yep, I'm doing a discounted rate, right now to my clients in light of the current situation, and people can feel like they're getting a great deal. But if you're giving people a deal, tell them that. Let them know what you're worth. Let them know what your standard fee is and that you're discounting. It both makes them feel like they're getting a deal and puts in mind that typically they would be paying more.
Great.
Any other questions there, Reisa?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. And I want to make sure that we get through your presentation, but basically, and I this might be a hard question to ask, or to answer, but what range of pricing for a seasoned interior designer? And I think that is kind of an open-ended question. I did see that come in a lot. It really depends on what area you're in. And then I did have a lot of people just agreeing with what you were saying in the beginning, is like, don't discount, because otherwise when they come back as clients after this is all over, it will be hard to get them back up to that rate because you've set that expectation. So I don't know if you have a range, Kate, but that was the question.
I mean, I can throw some numbers out there that I've seen. Sure. I would say that the really low end in parts of the country would be like $100 an hour. The high end would probably be $400 and $500 an hour. It's a pretty big range. And there are plenty of people who charge far less than they're worth. And there are plenty of people who charge a lot more because of their brand and their kind of more celebrity status. I think that one thing to keep in mind is that would be a price per hour. A virtual consult, I am assuming, is going to take you at least a couple of hours, right? Even if your consult is having someone fill out a questionnaire, then invoicing or scheduling them, having an hour-long appointment, and sending them some follow-up materials that you'll get more and more efficient at pulling together as you figure out your process and your deliverables. That's at least 2 hours of time, and assume more. It's better to assume a little bit more. You can always adjust. So when I'm talking about a virtual consult, I'm not saying that $100 is a sufficient amount to, on the low end, be charging. And I'm not saying that a single virtual consult should cost $5,000 either. It really is going to come down to how you're defining the consult and what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm sorry I can't give a more specific answer, but it really does somewhat depend on what you're choosing to deliver, how much time you're putting into it, where you're located, and what the demand you have is. But I think that, as a lot of people have kind of mentioned back to what I'm saying, at the end of the day, you also do want to think about this person as a long-term client. And yep, we're trying to solve some right now problems, and those are very serious. You need to take that seriously, but also, who are you creating for yourself as a long-term client based on what you're charging? And if you're going to charge a lot less, you need to really clearly document somewhere that, should they ever become a custom client for you, that what they're going to be spending, their rates will change. And you can note that, I think what's important also with virtual consults is you're creating a flat rate cost or fee for the virtual consult that never once mentions what your hourly fee is, unless you want to have on there like the idea that work beyond the scope of this one meeting will be billed at a rate of fill in the blank. You can do that.
Okay, so, and this is really interesting, and I know that we'll get to this in your presentation, but I think there is a very big difference from saying virtual consult versus e-design, and that's what we're going to cover. So those of you who've asked questions, we'll get into that shortly. I did want to clarify on your questionnaire, someone asked can you give us some basic questions you asked them. I understand depending on the job, some questions may vary, but you have like a set of questions in the questionnaire, maybe 2 or 3 questions that you always ask to kind of dive deeper into the client's needs?
Sure. So like on Reisa, do you mind muting me or turning me down just a little bit? There's a little echo on your end. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if other people are hearing that. I'm sorry. I'm hearing myself twice. Okay, so I think when it comes to virtual consults, which is different from virtual design services, those are a little bit larger. What you're going to find is that a questionnaire should be brief, it should be pretty concise, and it should get to the point. So you want to ask questions like, if you could solve one problem in your space, what is it that you would want to solve? You know, why are you contacting me? Maybe first of all, first and foremost, why are you contacting me? What is it that you want to accomplish? And some people will get really to the point, but some people won't. So you want a follow-up question to that. If you could solve one problem, what would that be? Or if you could accomplish one thing during our call, what would that be? And then from there, you might want to find out a little bit about, you know, what are your favorite, you know, colors? What colors would you never want to use in your home? Are you, depending on the type of consult you're going to offer, you could branch out a little bit and find out about their family, how they live in their home, how they use their home. But when you start digging in a little bit more like that, you're typically then thinking more about a slightly expanded questionnaire that would be more for e-design purposes. Essentially, you want to create two different questionnaires, one that's really streamlined and gets to the point because you're going to have probably a one meeting consult to get to the point. Or you might have some e-design services where you'll have a couple appointments, you might be doing a little bit more, and that's what I'll talk about next. I think the only other thing I have to mention about virtual design consults is that you also want to always get someone's contact information and make sure that you're doing some follow-up marketing. You might be using something, you might be using like Houzz Pro to handle all of your CRM needs, and that's fantastic. Whatever you do, you want to make sure that you have a means of reaching back to people, and whether you do email marketing or something else, you should have some follow-up marketing so that that client that hired you that one time thinks about you down the road as they become financially more stable or secure, or as they simply grow into a career and are ready to invest more in their home. So let's talk about virtual design, which is different from consults. Virtual design is another flat rate service. Here you might have maybe 2 to 3 virtual appointments, where with a consult, I would suggest should be 1, maybe 2, but I really would aim for, with a consult, that's a 1 call situation. Design might be 2 to 3 conversations. And this is where the client is still doing a lot of the legwork, because they are still filling out a questionnaire, they are still providing you with a lot of information, but you're now sharing as a designer a lot of the work, and this is where you're putting together a limited scope design plan. I think it's really important to note that it's limited in scope, because this is not full service custom design. This is, again, a predetermined, predefined set of services you are offering. The nice thing is that it might be more affordable to people who might typically not be able to hire you, and it can still lead to product sales. You can do something like put together a flat rate virtual design service where you're specifying furnishings that someone might decide to go and shop for themselves for, but if they might see some things in your presentation that they say, no, I want that precisely, and then you can, use the Houzz system, for instance, and their affiliate marketing program to actually, sell and specify things, or you can use the affiliate marketing program to note items within your presentation that you've selected from Houzz, so that your client is purchasing through Houzz using links you've set up. And Reisa, you probably could talk more about that than I could, but you can set up a situation where you might get some, residuals basically on furniture that is being purchased by your client because you selected them for them, being paid a flat rate. And that can be a nice way to go. So there are different options, is what I'm getting at. So what you need to put together for a virtual design service is going to feel very similar to a virtual consult. I would recommend starting with a virtual consult because it's simpler, and then you can build from there. But if you just want to dig right in, well, dig in and do this. The first thing you need to do is put together kind of an overall summary of services, just like you would with a consult. Here is what I am going to do for you. For this fee, I am going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire and provide photos, maybe some measurements, or a PDF of your home plans if you have them, whatever it is that you need. We're going to identify your needs, and we're going to go from there. Or alternatively, you can tell them what their needs are if they're contacting you for virtual design services. You might say, nope, I'm going to have you fill out a questionnaire, but not to determine your need, because my virtual design service is a room by room design service. If you want my virtual design service, we are identifying no less than one room that I am going to design for you, which means color palette and paint selections, floor plan based on measurements provided by you, and products selected, and I will provide you with the scale of furniture products that you need. I'll also put together a mood board with specific products selected that you can then either, I can link to, and you can click on those links and buy those items directly, and I, designer, can, get benefit a little bit from those purchases you make, or I can simply provide ideas that you can then go shop for, or ideas that you can then shop for, but identify one or two things that you do want to purchase directly through me, maybe through, as I've mentioned, an affiliate program, or maybe directly through a vendor that you like to work with. So there are ways to do that. You also, over time, you don't necessarily need to do it immediately, but in time, you'll want to create a frequently asked questions page. And again, these are like PDFs. This doesn't have, you can put things onto your website if you want to, but you can also just create PDFs that you send to people, that you promote however you promote things. The frequently asked questions will address things like, how many rooms do I get? Maybe you're going to charge a higher amount for your first room, and then any additional room can be added at a lesser amount. Maybe your frequently asked questions needs to go into that a bit more. Maybe your frequently asked questions needs to address things like, can I send you photos of things that I love? What if the things that I love were done by another designer? We get that question all the time. What if I love something by another designer but want to work with you? Can I send you that photo? Of course you can. So you want to kind of put together things that just help the process. And then finally, you may want to put together a guide. And a guide would be something like how to measure windows. Although I'll tell you, I would never trust a homeowner to measure their own windows and then be on the hook for whatever was produced based on those measurements. You might show them a guide for measuring their space though. And the guide might be something you put together. It might be something you put together and link to a great resource you found online that you think is fantastic. Do not steal that resource. Don't steal it as your own, but you can link to it. And then additionally, you'll put together a questionnaire that in this case might be a little bit more thorough, because now you are letting your client expand beyond a single problem to maybe a single room. And your process and your service related deliverables, those are going to change depending on who you are and what you're offering. Here's my recommendation. Everybody out there has a friend or a family member who's at home, who's bored, and who is constantly pinging you for advice about their homes, right? Like everybody's got that person in their life, or who would love to if they just had time, and now maybe they actually have a little more time to do it. Even if they've got kids at home that are driving them nuts, they still have a little bit more time because they're at home and they're not having to leave the house so much. Consider partnering with that person and figure out what your process, you might need to do the legwork first, figure out what your design process is, but once you've got a rough figuring of what your virtual service is, let a friend or a family member be your free client. You're not going to charge them because they're going to help you identify problems. And I typically, when I'm doing something like this, I have two people I go to, right? Two people who I trust, who I know will give me good critical feedback, but one of them tends to just love everything that I do. And she's a great person to start with when I'm figuring things out, because it's very encouraging. She'll point out when there are issues and I'll discover when there are issues, but she'll just be like really encouraging no matter what. And then once I think I have it set, then I go to my other friend who is just as she is encouraging, but from a more critical standpoint. She is much more willing to say, this doesn't work, this doesn't make sense, what about this, what about that? Because from her perspective, I need to figure this stuff out in order to have success, and she's right. So I'll go to my super encouraging, everything's great friend to start, and then I will go to my friend who's willing to be more critical and point out issues. And after going through that process twice, I'm going to have a really set of services. Every time I work with a client, I'm also going to set a meeting with myself for the first 3, 4, 5 clients and write down what went well, what did not go well, what do I need to tweak? Because you're going to find things to tweak along the way. Every single client you meet with, hopefully, gives you a moment to reflect. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions about this, so maybe I should turn things over to you, Reisa, and you can let me know what questions people have about virtual design, which is a little bit of a larger scope service, even though it's still defined.
Apparently I was echoing before, so I hope I'm not echoing now. So I'll try to talk quickly. When you do a consult and design a room with a client, how do you consider the actual execution of the work? Do you provide contractor options, other solutions?
Okay, so if you're consulting, if you're doing virtual consult or virtual design, would I provide a list of installers or other resources? If they're a local client, I might wind up connecting people. But when I'm thinking about virtual consult and virtual design, I'm tending to assume that I've got people reaching out to me from all over the US. So that might not be a part of my services. I might wind up putting together a list of local resources for our Austin-based clients or our Minneapolis-based clients. But that would be kind of an auxiliary benefit rather than a part of the service itself. On the other hand, if I was doing virtual design and I put together a virtual presentation for someone, we had our appointment, we went through everything, and they reviewed everything, and we did a follow-up meeting where they said, I love everything you've done, and actually I think I want to purchase the following things, and can you help me coordinate the painting? What's going to happen at this point is this person's now shifting a little bit toward being my typical custom design client, and that's okay, because I hopefully now am going to be selling them some furniture product, and I'm going to be helping to coordinate things. And I have to look, and you as a designer have to look at your model and say to yourself, okay, is this something, because I'm going to sell product and because I'm going to be extending this project, is this something that I can do without billing additionally for my time? Or is this something where I say, yep, I can do that, it will cost an additional X amount for my time, or I'm going to have to start billing you X many dollars per hour? Or is it a hybrid? Yep, I can sell you these products without billing you for my time, but to start coordinating installation of things, that's where I need to start billing for my time. And these are really important things. I'm glad people are asking these questions, because these are the things that will come up. And you might decide, I just don't offer that. And that's okay too. You can say that I just don't offer that service. It's okay to say no to things. I think sometimes we don't say that often enough. Don't agree to something that is going to create a bad client experience for your client, because at the end of the day, their perception is your kind of reality. And so if they perceive you as having been honest and transparent and easy to work with, and then that's a good thing. If, on the other hand, they perceive you as someone who said, well, they said they could deal with this installation and it's been a nightmare, then the perception isn't good, even though you were trying to go the extra mile.
Okay, this is a good time to ask this question. So, and I know we haven't gotten to talking about e-design yet. We're still talking about virtual design, and you can see the cadence of how we broke up this. There's virtual consults, there's virtual design, and there's different elements of what you can offer. So we might be covering this in a little bit, Kate, but my question, or the audience's questions, and I saw this multiple times, is do you offer a shop list and they purchase it, or do we still do the ordering and ship to their home? How are we making money off of product? Like what's the differentiating factor for you, and how does your firm manage this?
So I'll talk about, I always say my firm is a little bit, because we're just larger, we have multiple locations, sometimes what we do doesn't make as much sense for other designers. So why don't I give you a couple answers? Here are the ways that I know of some different designers handling this. I know of one designer on the East Coast who, when she does virtual design, she provides her clients with a whole presentation and packet of all the different items that she has selected for their home. And it includes, dimensions, colors, basic information, but not like they can't go out and immediately shop for it. She doesn't include actually links for people who want to shop. She basically says, okay, look for things like this, you're on your own, or if you're interested, you'll see the price of every single item in there as I can source it for you. So she basically does provide them with a shopping list with price tags on, so that anybody who wants to purchase some of the items, if they realize, oh my gosh, going out and trying to find all of these things is going to be a nightmare, I don't want to deal with it, especially given that I want some higher end pieces. And so then they can go through and tick off the things that they want, and they wind up purchasing things from her. They get no refund on the flat rate fee that they paid for the virtual design services to begin with. And hers is I would say a more kind of personalized service. So her virtual design fee is per room is quite high. It's into the thousands of dollars. So she is charging quite a lot. I know of other people who charge a bit less. They offer a less personalized experience. It's a little bit more cookie cutter. Here's what you get, here's what you get, here's what you get. And at the end, you can either, and Reisa, I want to make sure that this is correct. Houzz provides like affiliate links, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So that
Okay.
if you're offering the product and you're sending your shopping list, when I think of shopping list and sending that to my client, personally, I think of that as really true e-design, where it's kind of quick and dry. Here you are. And you can create that shopping list within our Houzz Pro, the managed platform, or for those of you who are using Ivy, you can do that and you can send that list. Again, traditional e-design, but you make a commission of those items when your clients purchase them.
Yeah. So that is something that some people will do. They'll say, you know what, I have a lot of people interested in less expensive services right now. So I'm willing to offer that because I'm going to, compress my services and the time it will take me down. I'm going to give much more kind of cookie cutter services. Cookie cutter is a horrible phrase to use. I don't really mean to diminish the type of work they're doing, but it's less personalized and less customized, right? It's more predetermined. So you're going to fill out this questionnaire. You're going to provide me with these layouts. We'll have one 30-minute conversation. I'm then going to do some very basic, a floor plan and design. I'm going to provide you with a presentation. Every single item that I recommend you purchasing, you can click through and purchase at that point. I will maybe get because I'm using affiliate links, I will get some amount for having sold those items. I get credit for that. And then I welcome the client to follow up with me if there's anything additional that they need, or maybe I offer a second, a final appointment to tweak, where I present some tweaks to things that you didn't like, but I'm willing to offer because you seem interested in making some purchases. So those are two different ways to offer virtual or e-design. I would say they're somewhat, virtual design and e-design are somewhat interchangeable. E-design can really happen with almost no interaction, I suppose, with the designer. But I would say it's all virtual design. It's all e-design. The difference is how many meetings are you going to have. And as a custom designer who intends to continue doing custom design down the road, we would like to have some client-facing time, even if it's very brief, via video, just to ensure that, yeah, I'm a real person to you. So you're going to think of calling me back down the road. There's some benefit to that.
Got it. Kate, let's keep going through our presentation and then I'll get to the rest of the questions at the end.
Sure. Okay. So as with everything, you should have some form of follow-up marketing that you intend to do. You want to stay in front of people over time. And so the final service I want to discuss today is remote custom design. So these are your full service custom design clients who still have projects they want to work on. And how are you working with them today? These are basically your custom services modified for our kind of new and current situation. There are a lot of different fee structures, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions about that, but this can be everything from, flat rate or hourly or straight product sales or some hybrid mixture, but how you bill is maybe a little bit less important than what is your process and then what makes sense in terms of billing once you figured that out. And this is where the designer really does most of the work. So these services aren't going to require quite as much upfront documentation because you're not asking for as much upfront from the client. Instead, what you probably have is some sort of really nicely laid out overview of your services and maybe a basic overview of here's what the process will look like. It probably includes a phone call or a virtual first appointment or both. So you might start with a phone call that you don't charge for, just to figure out, is this someone who makes sense to work with? Maybe you always charge for that first phone call, and in order to increase your conversion rate, you always make it a video conference call if someone's willing to do that, because then they're thinking about you and connecting to you on a more personal level than if you're simply making a phone call. Your process beyond that is going to be determined a little bit by your actual services. Are you offering, actual technical design plans? Are you designing kitchens, bathrooms, and other interior spaces? Are you doing architectural finishes or architectural detail type designs like fireplace surrounds, ceiling details, and so on? Are you helping to select construction materials and finishes? Things that maybe you are less likely to sell yourself, but that are important to the overall design process that your client's considering. Are you specifying furniture? Are you selling furniture? What about art and accessories and other home goods? As you kind of define what your services are, you're going to have to also figure out how you're going to deliver on these things virtually. But the idea is this is the moment where you're spending a lot more time with your client. You are setting very clear expectations with your clients, especially right now, about how long things take. Even if how long things take is to say, typically, furnishings are going to take 4 to 5 months. But right now, we're just not sure how long they're going to take. But I can promise you one thing, the faster you order them, the sooner you will get them. If that's what you can say, that's what you can say. But do make sure that any documentation that you have, whether it's your invoicing, your contract, and what have you, does have a line or a note about this. And also consider how you are billing your clients when it comes to actual collection of payment. By which I mean, are your vendors, because some are, now requiring that you pay in full upfront where they never have before? That could mean that you need your clients to pay you in full upfront, even if you've never asked that of them in the past. These are the sorts of things to consider. Are you going to ask them, if you're asking them to pay 50%, and typically you don't ask for another payment until the furniture comes in town, but that could be many months further out than usual, Are you okay with that? Because if not, maybe you need to say first payment upon placing orders and next payment, 2 months thereafter. You get to make up your own rules here. So consider your cash flow needs, the cash flow needs of your business, and determine when you want to ask for payments of various things. And I guess I'm going to pause there because I have a feeling there are a lot of questions about this. And I'm not done with well, Reisa, do you want me to just go through everything and then we can circle back to remote design and everything else?
Why don't you go ahead so we know we finished your deck, because we're at an hour.
Okay.
You want to be mindful. I know that these sessions are going longer because there are it's an interesting time right now, but I'm happy and Kate's happy, as we mentioned, to stay 15 minutes longer so that we can get to your questions. And again, people are still asking. This has been recorded, and we can go ahead with Kate's approval, send out the slides as well, and we can follow up with some of your questions as well at the end.
Perfect. I probably just have about 5 more minutes. I'll move through this briskly. So one more exercise I want to do is as you're thinking about your design process, you need to actually enjoy what you're doing. So take a minute to also ask yourself, what is your favorite part of the design process? Do you prefer working in technical drawings and finished selections? Do you prefer selling furniture? Do you prefer simply consulting with people? Is it the social element of working with clients that you love, or is that the thing you like the least? Ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself, what is your favorite way to work with your clients? By which I mean, do you like the clients that are really involved? Do you prefer the clients who are really hands-off and stay out of the process and just let you do your thing? Do you like the clients who want to learn and who you're kind of teaching along the way? And if you're out to drinks with friends, what is the part of your workday that you're most likely to be like, oh, if I could erase one thing, it would be this? Because I mentioned earlier, there is a bit of a silver lining to what we're going through right now. And that silver lining is an opportunity to redefine what your services are. And if there are things that you dislike, I mean, if you simply hate looking at P&L reports, like, too bad, you're a business owner, you have to know where the money's going. But you can hire someone to help with that, and there are services to help with that. But if there are parts of the design process you love versus hate, maybe now's a good time to consider how you can revise things. And this brings me to my final point, which is now's a great time to get creative as you think about your design services. There are a lot of things you can be doing right now. You can be doing video appointments and home tours. You can let your clients give a tour of their homes. You can be hosting virtual social hours with your clients and their friends and answering their burning design questions. You can be doing webinars and how-tos, maybe associated with a book or a blog or email marketing that you've always thought about working on, but you never quite have figured out. And maybe now is the time to figure out how to make affiliate and product marketing work for you, where you can have what might come to feel a bit like a passive income stream, because you have created a business plan that is more reliant on the flat rate fees, and yet what starts happening from your affiliate links supplements the income that you're bringing in. And there are a lot of other creative things you can be considering, but taking the time to diversify doesn't mean that you're committing to it for the long run. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever. It simply means you're creating a new opportunity for yourself. And a lot of these are things you can kind of turn on and off as the situation and pipeline warrants. So now we can circle back to questions.
Yay, okay, great. I did want to mention a couple things there, is that we actually have a weekly happy hour that we have on Zoom. So right now I can't see all of your faces. There's a lot of people here, so I think we would explode the Zoom if we did that. But tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific, join us. We talk about, and maybe Kate, you'll join us too. We'll be talking just every week, kind of connecting with designers across the globe. Actually, we had some Australian designers join. I know there's some people here today from Spain, from Canada. So it's not just for the US, but it's really a way for our community to connect. And it can give you an idea of how to host your own Zoom with your own community and your own network. And then I did want to mention, everybody said, this is super helpful. That Kate, I do believe on your website, you will be having some private consulting sessions with other designers if they want to pick your brain and get more feedback as well. So if we don't get to all your questions, you can do that as well. So let me go ahead. I had a good question come in here. How do you manage the client's expectation of the timeline? And I think that's from whether doing e-design or doing full remote custom design, because there are a lot of shipping delays. I saw in our private Facebook group, somebody mentioned, my clients are going crazy. They're not, even though we're in a pandemic, they're really frustrated. How do you manage that communication with your clients?
Sure, it's been challenging. And let me take one step back. There currently is not information about business coaching on our website. We are working on that. We're hopefully putting together some classes and things soon. But Reisa, maybe I can send you something that you can send out. But if anyone wants to reach out, just email design@o'harainteriors.com and we can connect and I can tell you about what the services that we do offer, or I do anyhow. As far as managing timelines, I think that there are two types of, let's call it two types of clients whose expectations you need to manage right now. One is the new client, people who have not worked with you, whose expectations you get to set freely right now. To those people, when you're talking about virtual services where you are not selling product or the product is something they're kind of clicking through on, you need to simply set very clear expectations, but you have to deliver, right? If you tell someone they're going to hear back from you within 48 hours, you have to reach back out to them. You can't not do that. And this is where sometimes email automation can be really helpful. Then additionally, when you say your design services working with remote clients are going to be complete within so many hours, again, you have to be able to deliver. So put together realistic timeframes. And I mean, if you have the tremendous problem of having too many people asking for your services, then you either need to start charging more or be okay with booking people out so that you can reach people, meet people's expectations. One of the worst things you can do is overload yourself, under deliver, and have unhappy clients. Don't put yourself in that position. The second category of client, and with that, even with your custom clients who are new, you can state very clearly, typically things take this long. Right now, things are pretty indeterminate, and we can't promise you when we're going to get furniture in. You might consider, this isn't something we've done, but you could consider offering your custom clients to go a more kind of, retail or like go a Houzz route, where you are not going directly through your vendors. If that's typically what you do, you can offer alternatives to people for this short time if you needed to. What we have tried to do is to simply offer alternatives. So we actually just yesterday were working with a client who has been a longer term client. They had their expectations set before this all happened. They are hoping for their home to be ready for the summer to enjoy. And the good news is most of the furniture is in town, not all of it is. So what do? Well, we talk to them. We take their problems seriously. We don't brush it, under the rug and pretend like it's not important because a lot of people are suffering right now. Two things can be true. This can be wildly inconvenient to someone, even given the larger context of what's going on in the world. So one of the best things you can do for a client is to let them know you're taking it seriously and to come to them with a solution. So a solution might be floor planning their space and showing them visually, here's everything you do have right now that we're going to be able to install immediately. And sometimes that can be almost all that it takes to realize like, oh, okay, we can live with this. A lot of your clients have functioning furniture right now. So maybe it's a matter of offering a couple hours free of charge of your time, or not free of charge. Maybe you charge them for it, but this was no fault of yours, but also none of theirs. So you might offer to spend some time doing a quick audit of the furniture that they own and saying, let's identify these pieces to actually sit in as stand-ins. But I think the real answer is we have to get creative. I mean, for one client, Martha actually loaned one client a couple sofas because there was a massive delay, and she has had a couple sofas in a room she wasn't using that were in great shape and could easily be used for staging and whatnot. And she said, yeah, why don't you just take my sofas for a couple months? It's no big deal. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone rent their furniture out to their clients or give their furniture to their clients, but my point there is, depending on the situation, these are the types of things that we sometimes just have to do. Not something we would typically do, though.
Kate, I have a question. So how about the things that like are super custom, like custom cabinetry, custom drapes, paint color consultation, where you really feel like you need to be on site? Are those things that you leave for later, or how do you manage that aspect of the project?
Okay, so I think that with certain things, yes. So many of you probably have clients come to you sometimes who are like, I can't do it all at once. I want to take a phased approach to my project. Well, we have clients who say that to us all the time, and we might typically say, well, let's choose a room at a time to work on. Right now, we're going to handle things a little differently. We're going to identify the things that we know are going to take longer or really be difficult to manage unless we can get into the house, like when measuring for windows, and say, okay, window treatments are phase 2. We're going to wait until we can get into the house. You can, depending on the area you're in and the timeline that you're talking about, I'm not talking about right this moment, but there will come a point where we are allowed in and out of each other's homes. And it'll happen at different times in different parts of the world. And when that occurs, you might find that you have a window installer who is willing to and able to go out and do the measurements for you. So again, if you're kind of trying to limit exposure and whatnot, I'm not suggesting we send people out unnecessarily into homes or in dangerous situations, absolutely not. But when the time comes and it is appropriate, what we do with our remote clients when we're not facing a pandemic is we don't ask our clients to measure themselves. We ask the person who will be installing those window treatments to do the measurements for us. We will get much more accurate measurements that way. Even so, we still have to have a conversation with them to make sure we're all clear about what exactly is being measured and how. I would say the part 2 answer to that is I think we sometimes need to rethink a little bit what's not possible. Because color consults frequently really are. And now it may be difficult to, custom mix that perfect finish to that perfect floor, but there comes a moment when you need to determine what your client's priorities are, and at what point are you not serving them by delaying a service because it's not an ideal situation. By which I mean, if the absolute best finish on a floor or cabinet paint color would be determined by you in the home, but for the client, their home is not livable for months without having that selection made, you're actually not offering them great service, I would argue, by forcing them to live in an unlivable space for months at a time simply to get that truly perfect shade. You would be better off as an expert, as a skilled person in your field, understanding and knowing what are finishes, what are colors that are almost universally beautiful in spaces that work with this client's color palette, and let's make that work. Because our job isn't just to make things beautiful, it's to make things functional, it's to ease people's lives, and we're not doing that if we're making them suffer for months in order to, get that perfect little tweak. The ROI on that is not enough sometimes to warrant what we would think of as not possible during perfect circumstances.
Okay. Wow, there's so many questions.
And I hope I'm not skewered for that answer, but I do think that we need to give that consideration.
I think what's really interesting here, and there's a lot of questions here about client communication. How do we manage telling our clients who say, I'm going to put my project on hold until the pandemic settles? what do you recommend if the client just signed the contract the day before this broke, and you state that you will purchase everything and now they're shopping you, like what's the best way to communicate with your client?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably some answers to that you're not going to love. Like, until someone purchases something from you, you're really not guaranteed the purchase. Even when they've signed a contract with you, you're not really guaranteed anything. It's until they have actually made a purchase with you. But I think that what's important is that you not get angry, you hide your frustration, and that instead you take that kind of we're all in this together approach with your clients. You want to be open. You want to have conversations. This is going to be one of those kind of uncomfortable moments that will help you grow tremendously, because you now get to pick up the phone with a client who has said, I want to put my project on hold, or I'm just going to do this myself, and say, hey, I really value your, you as a client, and I really want to work on this project with you. I understand that things are on hold right now, but I still think that there's a way for us to work together. Let's talk about it. Ask questions. Don't go into a call ready to convince them of what they need to do. Ask them some questions. What has you concerned? Tell me about why you're putting things on hold. What are you thinking? You might get answers that actually calm you down quite a lot. They just want to put things on hold for 2 months. Or they have no intention of doing anything outside of working with you. Or, yeah, I really need something immediately, and I've just heard that designers can't do that right now. Well, no, I absolutely can. Let me just adjust my services to what your needs are right now. You need to have a lot of conversations with people. I would say you also need to think about how you're talking about yourself. What does your website say? Does your website right now say everything it said 4 months ago? You might want to think about changing that, because your services have probably changed and how you're working probably has changed. And if your website isn't communicating that, that's a problem. How are you communicating to your clients? Are you letting them know about changes that you're making? Are you blogging about it? Are you, talking on Houzz or social media about it? Like, what are you doing to put your message out there and to let people know that you are working with people still? I get people, we're talking about it all the time, and I still got an email today from someone who I had originally spoken to in January saying, hey, are you guys still working? And I'm thinking, of course we are. We're all over the place. And so we're going to have a conversation about that tomorrow. So I think that, Reisa, as you said, communication is really key here. Being transparent is important. Being empathetic is important, but also being flexible is important. You're not going to devalue your services. You're not giving them away, but changing how you're going to deliver them might be what you need to consider.
Okay, and I wanted to end on this note. I was trying to share my screen, but I think your screen is still up. Kate, you guys have...
Oh, can I change that for you?
Yeah, you guys have, well, we can talk about it. Yeah, you guys have 178 reviews on your Houzz profile, and your Houzz profile is pretty insane, and you have over 106 projects uploaded. So, and I know that people have downtime to work on this stuff right now, and just reaching out to past clients and getting those referrals. How has that really shaped the game for you and your team? Because I know originally you had one office location in one area, and then you guys opened a second office in Austin. So you expanded your business, and coming out of 2008 to where we are in 2020, how has, leveraging a platform like your Houzz profile and really focusing on it shaped that way so that you were more set up for this to happen?
Absolutely. Houzz specifically has had a huge impact on our business, and I would say that we probably wouldn't have an Austin office, or it would have taken us years longer to get there without having Houzz as a platform. And I mentioned that that's not just a plug. It's a really honest assessment of the power of devoting some time and attention to your social channels, and to the channels in particular, like Houzz, that are so focused on interior design and where people are going to look for their next project. You want to have a complete profile. And I can't tell you how often people reach out to us and say, I just love how responsive you are. You answer everyone's questions. And so I assume that's a sort of customer service that you'll provide as well. And so how responsive you are, how engaged you are online can really make a difference. And yes, getting reviews helps tremendously. And now's a really good time to ask. You've got clients who've gone quiet. Well, now you have an excuse to reach out to them. Reach out and be like, hey, I've loved working with you, and I'm wondering how you would feel about writing me a review. We're looking for 5-star reviews, and be specific. Don't add, if you feel like you can give a 5-star review, we would really appreciate it. Here's the link. If you don't think you can give us a 5-star review, please tell me why not, so that we can solve that for you. And now's a great time to win a client back by solving a problem because they don't think they can give you a perfect score. But I would really recommend spending some time on that and considering what you're putting out there digitally, because that's where people are. And I think that as a lot of us are kind of looking to maybe cut some overhead costs or even cut some marketing costs, I would implore people to consider the importance of staying invested in the things that help us to keep working, and in the digital platforms like Houzz that help us to stay connected to people. Because what you don't want is to find yourself coming out of this in a scenario where you've actually not only did your clients go quiet, but they went somewhere else because they couldn't find you anymore, or you weren't as active, or they were under the impression you had closed business because you just weren't where they were used to finding you. That's a scary thought. So don't let that happen to you.
Well, there's so many more questions. We could stay here for hours, but I really am so grateful of your time, Kate. We have awesome feedback from the audience, and we have almost everybody that stayed on for the extra 15 or now 17 minutes. But I do want to let you go. I do want to thank everyone for your time. If you do have specific questions about the affiliate marketing, or about how to make the most out of your Houzz profile, or how to leverage, business management tools, I did send in some of the questions, how to put together those e-design packages. Just feel free to email me. It's reisa@ivy.co. And then Kate, your email is design@o'harainteriors.com, correct?
Yes, yeah. That'll make sure that even if I'm doing things like this one day, Lauren on our team will see it and make sure that I get to you right away. And I would love to hear from anybody who has questions. And if you are interested in any sort of business coaching, we do the sort of hour consults or larger packages if you have maybe something more that you want to address on a little bit more of an ongoing basis.
Yep. And then also join us. Maybe, Kate, you could be our special guest appearance so that we can get to some of the questions we didn't get to. Tomorrow, we do have a weekly happy hour every Thursday. Tomorrow will be at 5 p.m. PST, which is 7 p.m. CST and 8 p.m. EST. And then if you want a time that's earlier, just let us know. We're really here to support you through this time, trying to create content. If you missed any of our other previous webinars, the legal one last week was really good. There was one we did with Susan Winterstein when this kind of all just broke out. That was really awesome, and one with another business coach. And then continue to join us Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. and PST. And then also we'll be launching a virtual design market soon too. So we hope you can join us for that. You can shoot me over an email and I can send the specifics out, but you will all be getting an email. And again, just any content that we can do to support you through this time, just let us know. Great. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Bye.